My name is Edward Hale. I'm 62 years old, and this is the story of how I nearly handed over my entire $2 billion manufacturing empire to my son until a single text message froze my signature mid-air and forced me to confront a truth I never imagined my own family capable of. If you enjoy real-life stories like mine, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happened next. The contract folder on my desk was thick, heavy, and expensive, exactly the way my attorneys liked to present anything dealing with succession planning. I'd spent the past 6 months preparing to transition Hale Industrial Solutions to my only son, Daniel, believing it was the natural step after 4 decades of building the company from scratch. That morning felt meaningful, symbolic, the kind of morning my late wife, Helena, would have insisted be captured in a photograph. I sat in my private office on the 42nd floor, overlooking the Toronto skyline. I had just finished reviewing the final page of the transfer documents when my assistant walked in. "Mr. Hale, the board members will arrive in 20 minutes. "Perfect," I replied, clicking my pen. That's when my phone, face down beside the papers, buzzed once. Just one message. Normally, I would have ignored it. Saturdays were quiet, and the company rarely needed me on weekends unless something had gone horribly wrong. But something called it instinct nudged me to glance at the notification. The sender was unknown. The preview said, "Don't sign anything." I frowned and opened the message. "Unknown number. Mr. Hale, stop the signing, please. Your son is not who you think he is. Check your email immediately." My pulse ticked up a notch. For the next 5 seconds, I stared at that message, torn between dismissing it and investigating further. I didn't believe in anonymous warnings. I didn't believe in paranoia. But I also didn't believe in coincidences. I opened my email. There it was, an unread message at the top of my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, "Urgent. You need to see this before you finalize anything." No greeting, no signature, just 3 PDF attachments. My breath tightened. I clicked the first file. It was a scanned memo addressed to Hale Industrial Solutions, Legal Division. My name was listed under Proposed Capacity Review. I blinked. Capacity review. For me. The description claimed concerns about impaired business judgment. I felt disbelief creep up my spine. I had never been evaluated for anything of the sort. No one had suggested it. No one had approached me. The document was dated 8 days earlier. My hand tightened on the phone. The second PDF was worse. It was a chain of emails between Daniel and a private consultant, discussing the optimal timing for a transition of assets, specifically recommending that any transfer take place before an independent evaluation could contradict their claim of declining cognitive reliability. My jaw locked. Declining. I ran a global company with better performance than the last 20 years combined. I forced myself to read every line. Daniel had written, "My father still believes he's in perfect health. We need to move forward before he changes direction again." Direction. The only direction I had changed recently was shortening the timeline for his takeover, because I believed he was finally ready. The consultant replied with a detailed procedure about how to file documents without alerting Mr. Hale prematurely. Documented about me. The room suddenly felt too small. I opened the third PDF. It was a spreadsheet created by Daniel's wife, Lauren, outlining the valuation of all assets tied to my name and my estate. At the bottom of the sheet, a note, approx liquid assets, post-transition, $118 million, loan consolidation complete, ready for repurposing once Edward steps down. Repurposing. I sat frozen. I had trusted my son with the company, with the legacy Helena and I built. I had believed he was stepping up out of loyalty, pride, and readiness. But now it looked like he was preparing for my exit, and not the peaceful, celebratory kind, the strategic kind. The pressured kind. The kind that required my signature to disappear. I stared through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the skyline Helena used to admire. I felt the weight of her absence more than ever. She would have seen this coming. She had always sensed when Daniel's ambition crossed lines he didn't fully understand. My phone vibrated again. A single text from the unknown number. "Don't confront him yet. Watch your step. They already think you're vulnerable." Vulnerable. The word echoed in my mind. Unfamiliar. Unwelcome, chilling. I looked down at the unsigned contract in front of me. The pen felt heavier than any pen should. I stood up slowly, walked over to the window, pressed my palm against the glass. For the first time in my 62 years, the city below felt unfamiliar, unsteady, like I was standing on a ledge and didn't know what waited on the other side. I had spent a lifetime navigating competitors, markets, hostile mergers, but nothing prepared me for the possibility that the real danger had been growing under my own roof. The board was waiting. The ink was ready. My entire legacy was sitting on a table I suddenly couldn't bring myself to walk toward. And the worst part, this was only the beginning. I didn't sign the papers. I couldn't. Not after what I'd just seen. But I also didn't storm out of the office or call Daniel demanding answers. The anonymous message had been clear. Don't confront him yet. And for reasons I couldn't fully explain, I felt compelled to follow that advice. I slipped the pen back into its case, closed the contract folder, and told my assistant to reschedule the meeting. "Everything all right, sir?" she asked. I forced a small smile. "Just need a bit more time." She nodded, unaware that my entire world had shifted 30 minutes earlier. I left the building through a side exit, avoiding unnecessary eyes. My car was waiting in the underground garage, the familiar navy blue sedan that had been with me through countless early mornings and late-night decisions. But as I approached it, something strange happened. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. "You're being monitored. Don't go home." My hand froze on the car door handle. Monitored. A chill climbed up my back. I stepped away from the vehicle and pretended I was checking something on my phone, giving myself time to think. The garage was quiet to quiet. Just a few cars, the faint hum of fluorescent lights, the echo of someone walking on the level above. Then another message. "Use a cab. Trust me." I didn't know who this person was. I didn't know how they knew what I was doing. But the documents they sent, those weren't faked. They weren't fabricated. They were real. And someone had gone to great lengths to get them into my hands at the perfect moment. So, I followed the advice. I walked past my car, took the elevator up to street level, and stepped into the brisk Toronto air. A cab pulled up moments later, as if the city itself knew I needed an escape route. "Where to?" the driver asked. I hesitated. Home wasn't an option, the office wasn't safe, and I couldn't go to anyone close to my family. I made a last-minute decision. "Royal York Hotel, please." The driver nodded, merging into the afternoon traffic. As the car moved through the city, I tried to process everything I'd seen. Daniel wasn't just preparing to take over the company, he was preparing to challenge my decision-making, possibly even my legal competence, the very same competence that had built Hale Industrial into one of the most trusted suppliers in North America. Why now? Why this way? He could have waited a few months, a year. I'd been planning to retire, slowly give him space to grow, supervise the transition, make sure he was ready. Wasn't that enough? Apparently, it wasn't. The cab dropped me at the hotel entrance. I checked in under a different name, a habit from years of keeping sensitive negotiations private. Old instincts returning, uninvited but necessary. The room was on the 18th floor, quiet, spacious, with a view overlooking the lake. Normally, I would have admired it, but today, the beauty of Toronto felt filtered through a haze I couldn't shake. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone again. Still no additional messages. Whoever had warned me was silent now. My thoughts spiraled back to Helena, her soft voice, her way of reading our son better than anyone else. She had once said something I brushed aside at the time. "Daniel wants success, but he hasn't learned patience yet." That combination can be dangerous. I'd taken it as a mother's gentle concern. I didn't realize she might have been predicting something. At 4:12 p.m., my phone rang. "Daniel." I watched the screen light up with his name, unable to bring myself to answer. After the 6th ring, it stopped. Then came a voicemail notification. I hesitated before pressing play. "Dad, hey, we were expecting you for the signing today. The board is confused. Everything okay? Call me back." His voice sounded normal to normal. Not a hint of worry, not a hint of suspicion. If I hadn't seen those documents, I might have believed him. Then, minutes later, another voicemail from Lauren. "Edward, we're just checking in. Daniel said the meeting was postponed. We hope you're well. Call us if you need anything." Her tone was warm, almost overly reassuring, like someone maintaining a calm surface while hiding something beneath it. That night, I ordered room service but barely touched it. My mind kept circling one question. Who sent the warning? Someone close enough to know my movements. Someone with access to sensitive information. Could it be an employee, a former board member, a family friend, or someone inside Daniel's inner circle? someone who didn't agree with what he was planning. I didn't know, but at 8:03 p.m., I got my first clue. Another message. If you want answers, go to the office after 10 p.m. 12th floor. Come alone. My stomach tightened. The 12th floor was the accounting wing. Restricted access. Few people worked there. Whoever this person was, they knew exactly where the records were. And they knew exactly what I needed to see. I stared at the message for a long moment, feeling both fear and clarity settle into place. I'd spent a lifetime solving problems by analyzing facts, gathering data, understanding motives. It was time to apply those same skills to my own family. I put on my coat, took the elevator down, and stepped into the night with one thought echoing through me. This wasn't just about the company anymore. It was about trust. And trust, once broken, changes everything. The streets were quieter by the time I left the hotel. Toronto at night had a way of feeling both alive and strangely hollow, lights bright, but the spaces between them dark enough to swallow your thoughts. I walked instead of taking a cab, needing the time, the cold, the movement to keep my mind from drifting into panic. The night air was crisp, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension that had been building inside me for days. Every step on the pavement was a deliberate choice, an attempt to ground myself in the present and not let my imagination run wild with what might be waiting for me. By the time I reached the Hale Industrial Headquarters, my watch read 10:11 p.m. The building looked different at night, still imposing, but emptier, almost disconnected from the purpose it held during the day. It stood as a silent monument to everything I had built, yet tonight, it felt like a stranger's house. My keycard still worked at the staff entrance, and I slipped inside, feeling a faint, ghostly echo of the life I had built here. The air conditioning hummed softly, a constant, low thrum in the background. The security cameras blinked their little red eyes, watching my every move, but not a single light was on. The silence felt heavier than the darkness, pressing in on me from all sides. It wasn't a peaceful quiet, but an expectant one, thick with unspoken secrets. I walked toward the elevators and pressed the button. The familiar chime sounded unnaturally loud in the dead air. The ride up to the 12th floor felt longer than usual, even though the building moved with its usual polished efficiency. Each floor we passed was a layer of my life, and I felt like I was ascending through my own history, toward a confrontation I couldn't yet define. When the doors opened, I hesitated. The 12th floor was the executive heart of the company. Almost everyone who worked here left by 6 p.m. sharp. The only exception had been our senior financial officers, and even they didn't come in on weekends. So whoever told me to come, it was someone who had access. Someone who shouldn't be here now. A sense of unease crawled up my spine. I took a breath and stepped out of the elevator. The motion-activated lights along the hallway flickered to life, one by one, illuminating the beige walls and the neatly labeled office doors. Accounting, auditing, compliance. Each name was a reminder of the order and structure I had put in place, an order that now felt threatened. I followed the instructions I'd been given. End of the hall. Last door on the right. My footsteps echoed quietly against the polished floors, each one a soft drumbeat counting down to what I reached the door. It was cracked open, just a sliver. A soft glow from a desk lamp spilled into the hallway, a beacon in the gloom. My pulse tugged upward, a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I pushed the door gently, and it swung inward without a sound. Inside sat a woman I hadn't seen in years, Margaret Chen, one of our top internal auditors. Brilliant, precise, quiet. She had resigned unexpectedly 3 years earlier, claiming she wanted a slower pace, but now she was sitting in my company's accounting office at nearly 10:30 at night, flipping through a thick binder of reports as if she'd never left. When she looked up, her expression softened with something that looked like relief. "Mr. Hale," she whispered, her voice barely disturbing the silence. "Thank you for coming." I stepped inside and shut the door behind me, the soft click sealing us in. "Margaret," I said slowly, my mind racing to connect the dots. "You sent the messages." She nodded, her gaze steady. "I didn't know who else would listen, or who else your son hadn't convinced yet." A cold heaviness formed in my chest at the mention of Daniel. She gestured toward the chair opposite her. I sat, the leather creaking under my weight. She slid the thick binder across the desk, toward me. It landed with a soft thud. "I noticed irregularities about a year before I left," she said, her voice low and direct. "At first, it seemed like small accounting misclassifications, nothing a junior analyst couldn't explain away, but the patterns became clearer, too consistent to be mistakes. "What kind of irregularities?" I asked, my voice tight. She opened the binder to the first section, which was flagged with a red tab. Unauthorized reallocations, adjusted valuations on key assets, misstated projections for future earnings, all pointing toward one objective: shifting the appearance of the company's long-term stability. I felt a slow tightening in my stomach. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. "So the numbers Daniel presented to the board," my voice trailed off, "were selective," she finished for me. "Accurate enough to avoid formal suspicion from an external audit, but angled in a way that supported a very specific narrative." "Which narrative?" I asked, though a part of me already knew the answer. "That you were losing the clarity and instinct that made the company what it is," she said gently, her eyes full of a strange mix of pity and resolve. "That a leadership change was necessary, immediate." I leaned back, the leather groaning in protest. The words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me. It all made sense now why Daniel had been pushing meetings earlier, rushing decisions, preparing for a transfer he claimed was best for the company. It wasn't concern, it was a strategy. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, though my voice held no accusation, only a deep, weary sadness. Margaret hesitated, her gaze dropping to her hands. "I tried," she said quietly. "I sent a memo directly to your office, a detailed one, but I believe," she swallowed, choosing her words carefully, "I believe someone intercepted it." The room felt suddenly colder. "I didn't want to leave," she continued, her voice gaining a bit of strength, "but when I realized the direction things were headed, the kind of risks being taken, I stepped back. I thought distance would protect me. I never expected it would escalate to this, to evaluating your personal competence." Her voice grew soft, almost a whisper. "When I heard whispers about a guardianship application, I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore." I closed the binder slowly, the weight of the pages feeling immense. "So you monitored what was happening from the outside?" "Yes," she said, "through contacts who still believe in what this company stands for. But I only learned the timeline for their move last week, and the documents sent to me." I asked, thinking of the anonymous package that had started this whole nightmare. "Collected over years," she replied, "cross-referenced, verified. I sent them because you needed proof before you made any irreversible decisions. You needed to see the truth before you signed away your life's work." I exhaled deeply, a long, shaky breath, trying to reconcile the version of my son I knew, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, the young man I'd mentored with, the one these documents showed. Margaret lowered her gaze. "I care about this company, Mr. Hale," she said softly, "and I cared about the integrity of your leadership. I couldn't let misinformation take everything you built." Silence stretched for a moment, thick and heavy. Then she looked up again, her expression urgent. "There's something else you need to see." She stood, walked to a locked filing cabinet tucked away behind her old desk, and pulled out a thin manila folder. It looked insignificant, but I had a feeling its contents were anything but. She handed it to me. I opened it. Inside were a series of printed emails and handwritten note dates, financial decisions, records of conversations between Daniel and key executives. Each one hinted at a larger pattern, a strategy, a coordinated effort. This wasn't just ambition. It wasn't just impatience. This was a plan, a cold, calculated takeover. "Daniel wasn't acting alone," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He had help inside the company." My hands tightened around the folder, the paper crinkling under the pressure. "Who?" I demanded. She hesitated only for a brief second before whispering a name that made the world stop. "Someone very close to you." My pulse stilled. Someone close, someone trusted. Not one of the executives Margaret wouldn't call that close in this context. It had to be someone else, someone who had access to my home, someone who knew my routines, my habits, my weaknesses, someone who had my full, unwavering trust. Someone. Margaret spoke softly, almost reluctantly, as if she knew the words would break me. "It's your brother, Mr. Hale." The room tilted. My brother Robert, my only sibling, my oldest friend, the man who stood beside me as my best man, the man who co-signed my first business loan, the man who was there through every major milestone. My breath felt thin, trapped in my lungs. "Why?" I whispered, the single word a raw plea. Margaret simply nodded once, toward the folder in my hands. "Because he stands to gain more than anyone if you step aside." He's the largest individual shareholder after you, and Daniel aligns with him completely. They shared the same vision for a new era of Halley Industrial. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Not because I didn't understand, but because, with sickening clarity, I finally did. Every strange message, every manipulated document, every odd interaction, every missing memo, every single piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Daniel hadn't orchestrated this alone. He had help, family help. This wasn't just a misunderstanding or a desperate mistake by an ambitious son. This was an arrangement, a conspiracy, a coordinated effort to push me out before I ever realized what was happening, to paint me as incompetent so they could seize control. Margaret spoke again, her voice steady, pulling me back from the brink. You need to be careful moving forward. They've built months of preparation around this. They have a narrative, and they have supporters. They will expect you to react emotionally, to lash out, to confirm their story that you're unstable. I closed the folder carefully, my thoughts sharper now, the initial shock giving way to a cold, hard resolve. The betrayal burned, but it also forged something new inside me, something unbreakable. No, I said quietly, my voice devoid of the tremor I felt in my soul. I looked at Margaret, and for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of my old self return. The strategist, the builder, the man who never backed down from a fight. They won't expect what I'll do next. That night, as I left the 12th floor, a new kind of silence settled inside me. It wasn't shock or confusion. It was clarity, a painful, sharp clarity. My son and my brother, the two people I trusted most in this world, had organized this, and they had come dangerously close to succeeding. Stepping back into the cold night air, I finally understood what Margaret had been too gentle to say outright. This wasn't just a succession plan gone wrong. It was a coordinated attempt to remove me before I even realized what was happening. But they didn't know one crucial thing. I wasn't the same man I had been 3 months ago. Losing Helena had changed something deep within me. Yes, it had broken things, but it had also rebuilt others. She always used to say I was too trusting, too willing to believe in people's best intentions. She was right. But tonight was the last night I would ever operate on trust alone. The next morning, I didn't go home. I stayed at the Royal York, brewed a strong cup of coffee, and opened the folder Margaret had given me. I went through it page by page, making notes, connecting timelines, and tracking every single irregularity. The deeper I went, the clearer the picture became. Daniel hadn't built some elaborate scheme out of malice. No, his motivation was something far more dangerous in the business world: entitlement. He wanted control. He wanted the title, the prestige of running a billion-dollar corporation, without understanding the immense weight that came with it. And my brother, Andrew, had been the one fueling that ambition. The emails between them painted a consistent, heartbreaking story. Andrew believed the company needed younger leadership. He believed he had earned a larger stake after decades of being my second in command. And he believed Daniel could be molded into the perfect successor. Someone who would listen, someone who would depend on him, someone who wouldn't challenge him the way I always had. It made a sickening kind of sense. Andrew wasn't trying to remove me out of cruelty. He was trying to secure his own future. But the methods they used, the manipulation, the evaluation they tried to schedule, that crossed a line no family should ever cross. Not in business, not in life. At 9:42 a.m., my phone rang. The screen lit up with a name I recognized instantly. Daniel. I took a deep breath and answered. Dad, thank God. Are you okay? You didn't come home last night. His voice was laced with fake concern. I'm fine, I said, my own voice calm, controlled. Where are you? In my office. We're all waiting to reschedule the signing. The board wants to finalize things before the quarter ends. Good, I replied. We'll meet today. He paused for a second. That's great news. When 2 o'clock, I said. Boardroom A, the most secure room in the building. Soundproof, monitored, the place where every major decision had ever been made. Daniel sounded relieved, far too relieved. Perfect. I'll let the team know. He hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment before calling someone else, someone I trusted. My external legal counsel, Victoria Haynes. She answered on the first ring. Edward, you don't call on weekends unless something's wrong. You're right, I said. Can you be at the office by 2? Absolutely. Should I bring the full team? Just you. And bring the file we discussed last year. There was a silence on the line. Then, her voice lowered. "Are you sure you want to open that box?" "I don't have a choice anymore," she exhaled slowly. "I'll be there." At 1:56 p.m., I entered the boardroom. The entire leadership team was already there. Daniel sat at the center of the table, hands folded neatly, trying and failing to hide his anticipation. Lauren sat beside him, tapping her pen lightly. And across from them was Andrew, my brother, my former confidant, looking calm, collected, absolutely certain that everything was going according to his plan. The contract folder lay in the center of the table, waiting. Daniel stood when I walked in. "Dad," he said warmly, "I'm glad you're here. Let's finish what we started." I didn't respond to his fake enthusiasm. Instead, I placed a thin binder on the table and remained standing. "We're not signing anything today," I said. The room froze. Confusion flickered across their faces, then irritation, and then on Daniel's face something else. Fear. "Dad," Daniel said carefully, "I hope you're not reconsidering. This decision is important for the company, for our future." He was performing. Every word sounded rehearsed, like a bad actor in a play. I opened the binder, Margaret's binder. Dozens of documents slid into view. "Before any transition happens," I said, "we're going to review a few things." Andrew shifted in his seat. "What's this?" he asked, trying to sound casual. I met his eyes with the calmest expression I could manage. "You tell me." Silence. Everyone waited. I began. "These are financial adjustments made without authorization. Emails discussing a capacity evaluation for me. Documents showing a coordinated effort to position me as unfit to lead the company I built." Daniel swallowed hard, the color draining from his face. Lauren stopped tapping her pen. Andrew leaned back, his face tightening. I continued. "And these," I said, pulling out another page, "are communications outlining a plan for a guardianship filing, a legal intervention against me." Gasps whispered through the room. Daniel tried to keep his voice steady. "Dad, this isn't your misunderstanding." "Yes," I said softly. "I misunderstood for months." I closed the binder. Then I looked at each of them, one by one. "You didn't come to me. You didn't talk to me. You didn't ask if I needed help or if something was wrong. You prepared a case. You organized documents. You strategized how to remove me." Daniel stood abruptly. "You don't know the full story." "Then tell me," I said calmly. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Instead, Andrew spoke. "This company needs new leadership. Edward, you're tired. You've been tired," I repeated. "So tired that you felt justified planning this behind my back." Andrew's jaw locked. Daniel looked between us, panic finally showing in his eyes. "Dad, please." I held up a hand. "I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to shout. I'm here to protect what I built, and to make sure decisions are made with transparency, not manipulation." I pulled out the final document. "And that's why Victoria is joining us today." Right on cue, the door opened. Victoria walked in, holding a thin envelope. Daniel turned pale. Andrew stiffened. "Gentlemen," she said calmly, "I'm here to inform you that Edward has initiated a full independent review of recent company activity, including financial adjustments, internal communications, and attempted evaluations." The room erupted in quiet shock. I didn't flinch. "This isn't retaliation," I said. "It's accountability." Daniel's eyes glistened not with remorse, but with the sudden, sharp realization that his plan had completely unraveled. Andrew looked at me with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said quietly. "I'm correcting one." For the first time in months, I walked out of that boardroom feeling steady. Not victorious, not vindicated, just steady. This wasn't the end, but it was the moment the balance of power shifted. The moment they realized I wasn't powerless. The moment they realized I saw everything clearly now, and they weren't ready for what came next. The boardroom confrontation didn't end the conflict. If anything, it exposed the full size of the fracture running through my family. But as I walked out that day, my steps were steady, my mind clear in a way it hadn't been for months. I had finally seen the truth for what it was, and truth, once uncovered, can never be buried again. That evening, I returned to the Royal York. I didn't go home, didn't answer Daniel's calls, didn't reply to the messages Andrew sent insisting we talk privately. No, everything they said privately had led us here. From now on, everything would be out in the open. I sat in the quiet of the hotel room, the lights low, looking out at the shimmering reflection of the city on Lake Ontario. This view had comforted me for years. Tonight, it simply felt honest. And honesty was exactly what was needed. At 7:46 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Dad, please, we didn't mean to hurt you. Can we talk alone?" Alone. Of course, that was what he wanted. I didn't answer. I waited. Another message came. "Dad, if this goes public, the company will suffer. You will suffer. Please stop this." There it was. Not regret, not understanding, not apology, fear of consequences. I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. My heart broke in a quieter way than I expected. Not from anger, not from betrayal. From the realization that I had raised a son who didn't understand the difference between leadership and control, between ambition and integrity, between pressure and trust. My wife had warned me once, long before she passed. "Edward, Daniel admires you, but he doesn't understand you yet, and he might take shortcuts to become who he thinks you are." She had seen this coming. I hadn't, but now, for the first time, I had to respond, not as a father blinded by hope, but as the custodian of a company built on integrity. The next morning, I met with Victoria in the hotel lobby. She carried a briefcase, her expression composed. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. "I don't think readiness matters anymore," I replied, "only doing the right thing." She nodded. "Then, let's begin." We spent hours reviewing everything: Margaret's documents, the email trails, the financial inconsistencies, and the guardianship preparation. Victoria took notes meticulously, building timelines, assessing legal exposure, evaluating procedural missteps. At the end of our deep dive, she closed her notebook and looked at me steadily. "You have 3 options," she said. "Tell me." 1. Pursue full legal action. File complaints with regulators, make an internal report, remove everyone involved. This will be the cleanest ethically, but the most damaging to the company. I nodded slowly. 2. Initiate a private investigation and force internal restructuring. Quiet, controlled. You remove their ability to act against you, but without public fallout. "And the third?" I asked. 3, she said gently. "You step back voluntarily and let things continue. You keep the peace, but you give up control." I leaned back, absorbing the weight of it. Victoria's voice softened. "I know this is more than business for you, Edward. It's family. But whatever you choose must protect both your legacy and your peace of mind." Peace. The word lingered in the air. That evening, I made my decision, not out of fear, not out of anger, but with clarity, the one gift Helena always tried to teach me to seek. Before calling Daniel, I drove to the cemetery. I stood at my wife's gravestone as the autumn wind traced cold lines along my coat. "I'm sorry," I whispered, "for not seeing it sooner, for assuming the best without teaching the best." The world around me felt still, quiet, patient. For the first time since everything began, I felt grounded. By the time I returned to the hotel, I knew exactly what needed to be done. I called Daniel and Andrew to the office the next morning, not in the boardroom. In my private office, the place where I had launched this company decades ago. They entered together, both tense, both trying to read me before I spoke. I gestured for them to sit. They didn't. "Is this going to the board?" Daniel blurted out. "Sit," I said gently. They did. I looked at both of them and spoke with a calm they didn't expect. "I won't pursue legal action." Their shoulders loosened with relief. "But," I continued, "I will not be signing the company over to either of you." Their relief evaporated. "What?" Daniel whispered. "Dad, you can't." "I can," I said. "And I will." Andrew leaned forward. "Edward, be reasonable." "Reason," I said evenly, "is exactly what was missing when you made your decisions." Silence thickened between us. "You both attempted to take control through manipulation, not merit. And while I'm not punishing you through courts or regulators, I cannot trust you with this company." Daniel's voice cracked. "Dad, I was trying to protect our future by undermining mine." His eyes fell to the floor. I continued. "Hale Industrial will move under an independent transitional trust. A team of industry leaders not in our family will prepare a structured, transparent succession plan." They stared at me in disbelief. "You removed my choice," I said softly. "So I'm taking the choice out of your hands as well." Andrew stood abruptly. "This is a mistake." "No," I replied. "It's the first sound decision any of us have made in months." I gathered the documents on my desk. "You're still my family," I said quietly. "But family does not replace accountability." Daniel looked up at me slowly, his voice breaking. "Dad, are we ever going to be okay?" I paused. I don't know, I answered honestly. Trust takes time to rebuild, but I'm willing to try. If you are. For the first time since this began, Daniel's face softened, defensive, not ambitious. Human. I want to try, he whispered. Andrew didn't answer. He simply walked out. That told me everything I needed to know. Weeks passed. The independent trust began its work. The company stabilized. Quiet conversations with Daniel grew into cautious understanding. We didn't rush anything. We didn't pretend nothing happened. We simply worked slowly, deliberately toward something real. One evening, Daniel stopped by the hotel with a simple message. I'm ready to earn what I once tried to take. For the first time in months, I felt something in my chest lift. Relief, hope, possibility. I am not the man I was before this began. My family is not the same. My company is not the same. But maybe that's the point. Sometimes the truth shatters everything so you can rebuild it honestly. And Helena was right all along. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you teach the people who carry it after you. Thanks for listening to this final chapter. Be sure to subscribe for more stories.